It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL is going international again in 2025 to open the season in Brazil, as the LA Chargers will play in São Paulo Friday, September 5th, one day after the season opens on Thursday Night Football. Josh Heupel made some moves on the Tennessee coaching staff, according to multiple reports on Tuesday, promoting special teams analyst Evan Crabtree to special teams coordinator and senior defensive analyst Lavorne Harbin to outside linebackers coach. Both fill the void left by Mike Eckler, who took the special teams job at Nebraska. Heupel will also reportedly bring in longtime NFL special teams coach John Bonamego as a special teams assistant. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We're happy to have you. Hope you're safe and warm amidst, this is not really a snowpocalypse type of situation. In fact, it took me less time to get to work today. Now, that's because nobody's on the roads. It took me less time to get to work today than it normally does.
Shout out to the city of Nashville, by the way.
Truly, I was just thinking that. We never praise metro, governments for anything more often than not. But yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, because I don't think we mentioned it enough last time around when there was much more snow. But it was just a couple of years ago, I feel like we had snow and ice and the roads were a disaster. They've done a really nice job. I have not had any issues in these last couple of snow days getting to and from work or wherever I need to go.
No, it's not even not even just the highways. Like, it's surface streets that ready to go and properly salted and snow prepared and all these different things. I know Mayor O'Connell was talking about, and he bought a couple of, or the city bought a couple of new snow plows for these kind of preparations, and so far so good. Pretty happy with that. We're happy to have you today, wherever you are. Also, shout out, normally no free ads, but shout out to the wonderful people at Dunkin' for being the only breakfast place open today for some coffee. So I was very happy to see them this morning. They were probably not happy to see me. They're probably looking at me like, you're the bleep hole that makes us have to come into work on a snow day when nobody else does. But still, appreciate you. Do you appreciate the NFL's international schedule? Because we now have a considerably bigger slate of international games on an annual basis than we normally do. And the latest news is that the Chargers will host the NFL's second ever regular season game in Brazil. You did not attend the first one between the Packers and the Eagles?
I was doing some high school football on my TV 30. I think I was doing Station Camp and Gallatin. I can't remember.
I mean, I'm certain that you would much rather be at
Station Camp in Marshall County. That's what it was.
Station Camp versus Marshall County than the Eagles and Packers in Sao Paulo. But this Chargers game, their opponent is not yet named. I assume we'll find out that in May. But this brings up an annual conversation that we have about why the hell is the NFL playing so many international games and who does it actually serve? Because this has been your point on this for quite some time, even as you have Brazilian heritage. And I imagine that you are not outright opposed to the idea of the NFL playing in Brazil or elsewhere in the world that American football doesn't necessarily make sense. What's your biggest issue with this?
I mean, I do enjoy the fact that people get to celebrate Brazil and Brazilian culture and be exposed to it watching these games, but I know for a fact that next to nobody in the country of Brazil could care an iota about the NFL coming there. I don't think it serves anybody except for the NFL and whatever revenue they get out of this. It certainly doesn't serve the fans to lose a home game out of this. It certainly doesn't serve the players. We saw the player safety issue pop up in Brazil in week 1 last year, not necessarily due to the travel. It's honestly not that taxing, depending on where you're flying from. A flight to São Paulo can be a 7-8 hour flight, but it's a 2-hour time difference from here, right? So if you're going from Eastern time, it's a 1-hour time difference. Not that big of a change. I suppose it's different from the Chargers who are leaving from LA, but that's all besides the point. Jordan Love got hurt in week 1. Knee twisted up on that patchy field in São Paulo that, soccer games are being played on throughout the course of the year. What happened here?
Not sure.
Early oopsie. Early for an oopsie at 10:05 a.m. Central Time.
Keep it
That
moving.
should
My
not
blood
have come
pressure
out of a pot.
cannot handle that.
It is 12:05 p.m. in Brazil right now to transition. That was terrible.
Shut up.
But yeah, so who does this serve? I mean, help me out. Other than the NFL.
The NFL.
Yeah, I know that's the answer.
I mean, so why do we go through the hand
I
wringing?
think it's still okay to
I
complain
hear
about
you that it does. Well, yeah, sure. You're completely fine to complain about it. It's like the existence of the NBA. Didn't we talk about what Kevin Durant had to say about the NBA the other day? That people far more enjoy the bitching about the NBA than actually watching the product of the NBA. Lucas, this is not for you. It's not for you at all.
Do you know how long? Because the LA Rams, the Chargers go to Brazil this coming season. The Rams go to Australia in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how long a flight from LAX to Melbourne is?
I want to say it's 22.
Not that long, but it's about 16 hours.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
It's just every time we do this, I know,
Lucas,
I know what the answer is.
They don't care. They don't. So I don't know what. I don't know
I'm
why
just tired. I'm tired
you
of hearing...
resign yourself to just kind of letting the world happen around you at almost every other turn, be it sports, politics, climate change, all of it. The world just happening around you. But this is the thing that's going to be the hill that you want to die on, fighting the good fight against
tired of hearing Roger Goodell talk about player safety at his State of the League address.
Okay.
And then turn around and send the Rams to Australia.
They
and
don't
talk about
care.
An 18-game season. I loved Goodell bringing up data that shows that an 18-game season could actually benefit player safety. And then NFLPA leadership is coming out like, yeah, we haven't seen that data. Please show us where another 4 quarters of bashing heads together is helping player safety.
There is some chat conversation. By the way, you can interact with the show, 615-737-1045. If you have an impassioned stance on the NFL's international schedule, you can also chime in via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you choose to live stream the show. We are available to you today, where people like Russell chime in and say on YouTube, international games alienate American viewers. I probably wouldn't go so far as to say that they alienate American viewers, but also these are not for American viewers. These games are not for American viewers. They already have you. This is just like when college football went through all the changes, and, there was understandably a lot of people upset about the amount of overwhelming difference. Basically, somebody taking a sledgehammer to the traditions of college football and not being concerned about the fact that now USC is going to play in the same conference as Rutgers and Indiana, right? When the Big Ten realigned, or that Texas and Oklahoma were going to join the SEC, or all these different things that feel like an annual shift in the landscape of college football. And the vast majority of the college football consuming audience didn't love it. They don't care about you. They already have you. These changes are to broaden the scope of the game. And at the crux of it, to broaden the amount of money that the NFL can ask of streaming platforms, of international television networks, of media entities to upcharge on their product, because they already have the American dollar on lock. It's not about the American football consuming audience. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's really not even about the people in Sao Paulo or Australia or Spain, Germany, England, everywhere else that we're playing international games. It's about money. And it will continue to be about money until such time as the NFL finally reaches a point. I don't know that it will ever happen. It seems like the NFL will go on in perpetuity, just continuing to make more money year after year after year. But they're in constant growth mode. They are ravenous. They are consuming, or trying to consume, everything in its path. What did they do just this year? They started doing games on Black Friday and Christmas Day, because even the normal holidays are not enough for professional football. They want more.
But Doesn't mean we can't complain about it.
Sure, you can complain about it.
We
I get it.
We're allowed to not
It's just
like it.
it's just the funniest thing.
Why can't we have both?
Well, because you specifically choosing this as a thing to be bothered by when nothing else in the world seems to bother you on a regular basis. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, life is much easier when you choose to ignore the important things.
615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to join the conversation. So, yes, the NFL will play in Brazil again. That was officially announced this morning. And that brings the international slate to a sizable number of games that are going to be played overseas right now. The total number of games, the Chargers week 1 in Brazil, the Jets and Browns both have one game each in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The Jags will be in London again at Wembley. Colts in Berlin, Dolphins in Madrid, Steelers in Dublin. That is all a part of the 2025 NFL schedule, which will be announced, of course, in May.
All that said, if the Titans were to play in São Paulo, I would love to go. It would be awesome. Be great.
No complaints
great
then.
Station road trip.
He'd be begging someone in the company, hey, send me. I can be your international correspondent. I speak Portuguese. Portuguese is what they speak in Brazil.
It's being alleged that I'm calling it San Paulo.
Have you been?
It is not San Paulo. It's São. Let's work on it.
Okay.
São. S-A-O.
S-A-O.
Mm-hmm.
So.
São.
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 São Paulo.
São.
Did I get it?
Close enough.
All right. Look at that.
Can I try?
No. You made an oopsie 5 minutes into the show.
So,
you are forbidden to do anything but punch the buttons and go about your job today.
So people, the most common name in Brazil is João, which translates to John in English. And so like people call São Paulo Sao Paulo, you know what I mean? Because that's what it looks like in English phonetically. I always feel for like foreign exchange students from Brazil that will come to the U.S. and their name is João. And it's one of the most common names in Brazil, but they end up in American schools where they just get called João for the entire time that they're there.
People are not trusting your pronunciations because you famously cannot pronounce words in the English language that feel, pretty commonplace on a regular basis. Chamber being the most famous of them.
Yes.
Dispute, your weird, you put weird accentations on letters in dispute that makes no sense to the vast majority of our audience. So again, you are being trusted here, but the spelling bee champion, as DJ from Nashville on YouTube points out, that can't pronounce words.
Yes, we should trust the F&M Bank chat on the pronunciation of Brazilian words.
I certainly trust them more than I trust you on pronunciations.
English is a second language. That's what I fall back on.
Free agent options. We were prepared to do the entire list of needs that the Titans have on their roster and decide whether we were going to drop them into best solved via free agency or best solved via the draft. And as is typically the custom around here, we made it through one position group. We made it through the quarterback. So we decided, all right, we're going to stretch this out. We're going to talk about the offensive line, whether the best solutions for this particular football team lie in free agency or via the draft. That's next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Lucas and I were just marveling at a graphic from A to Z Sports. It's a quote from, I don't think this is a fine, but it's a dear friend and colleague, CBS Sports, Emery Hunt. It's fine. I'll take it.
Dear friend, you say?
Yeah, I've known him a long time.
Okay. What's one thing about him other than he is a NFL analyst for CBS Sports?
That he founded a company called Football Game Plan. This was far before he was working at CBS Sports.
Well, I know that. That was his Twitter handle for a long time.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Do you know what Football Game Plan is?
No.
It is a comprehensive scouting outlet that covers all of the players outside of basically the Group 5 and Power 4, I guess now, going from any number of prospects, HBCUs, Division II, Division III NFL prospects.
I know he is excellent with HBCU prospect analysis.
Emery has been doing small school scouting for years upon years upon years, and he was doing some ESPN Plus, ESPN3 type of analyst roles for those kind of games that appear only on ESPN streaming platforms and stuff like that. Also a very snappy dresser, Emery Hunt. Satisfied?
None of that was personal.
Yeah, none of it was
It's very personal. He
No, it's
founded
not.
that company.
That's professional. That's
That is
the
a
definition.
professional-
The definition.
That's the only thing that I care about. I don't have
professional.
actual relationships with people. I only have professional relationships with people.
Okay, good. That's what we're looking for.
Okay, that's something.
What's his grandma's name? Anytime Buck mentions someone as a
Buddy,
dear friend,
I
he has
don't
to
know
say their grandma's name.
either of your parents' names, and I see you every day for 3 hours a day, okay? I don't do the personal stuff. I don't care. Emery is somebody who I do trust and who I appreciate his analysis every time he puts something out there. And I saw one tweet from him yesterday that that was noteworthy before we talk about the offensive line needs of the Tennessee Titans and how they are best addressed, be it via free agency or via the draft. But he put out a tweet yesterday saying Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are first-round quarterbacks. They would have been last year, too. Don't let them folks lie to you. And that's at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, to which I appreciate his analysis. I understand that there's a lot of things that Emery knows that the vast majority of the public may not know about these two players, going back to Incarnate Word and Jackson State. And Shedeur Sanders has always been on a national scale, always had a national profile, but the actual scouting, like how many people are actually watching Shedeur's Jackson State games? I'm sure NFL people are because it's their job to. But people who are tasked with the analysis, like the evolution of the player from what he started out as at Jackson State and then what he became ultimately at Colorado, Emery's got a pretty good pulse on the situation.
And he's really high on both of these guys.
And then I see this from Emery that A to Z Sports puts together. It's just a graphic of a quote that he said. And I'm trying to figure out where the hell he said it. Because I texted him and said, after this, we need to have a talk. Quote, the template, talking about the Titans and the quarterback situation, the template has been put in place. The foundation is set. Any quarterback you add, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, makes this a playoff team. Talking about Tennessee. This is a smart individual. This is a smart football individual. And I like dropped my phone. I was so stunned by the idea of anybody talking about foundation, template. What about last season gives you any indication that there is anything that they are capable of building off of beyond Tony Pollard, Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, and J.C. Latham? Because maybe I'm too close. Because I think that's something that happens to people who cover things on a local basis. You get too close to a couple of things, and it may remove you from giving an actually objective or what you think is objective versus what's actually objective analysis on what you see every day, because you see it every day and you talk to these people every day. And it does start to seep into the thing that you talk about every day. So when Emery comes out from, CBS Sports, I think he's based in New York, and he gives analysis like that, I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah. Well, sometimes season-to-season flips seem impossible, but they do happen, right? It happened with the Commanders, obviously, from 2023 to 2024. And I just tracked this down on CBS Sports. Emery was given a prompt, who can pull off a worst to first season the way the Commanders did?
Okay.
And he had 2 guesses.
My Garden State a lot of love. I appreciate that. And you're up first here. You think the team drafting first will make a major leap, and then also maybe the Panthers are a lot better this year. Why?
Well, timeout. Last year at draft time, I was sitting next to your co-host right there, Jacqueline, and I said that the Washington Commanders will go to the playoffs based off them drafting Jaden Daniels. The clip is out there, the tweets out there, the receipts are out there. Now to your question. I like Tennessee because here's the thing. That roster, to me, is not bad at all. They just need a quarterback. They have 2 solid receivers, really good tight end, a collection of tailbacks, and defensively, the front 7 is really good. And on the back end, they were banged up a lot last year to get a lot of those guys back healthy. So the template has already been put in place. The foundation is set. Any quarterback you add, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, makes this team a playoff team. And the Panthers, based off how they finished, they started to get a little bit more fight in them. We saw Bryce Young look like the Bryce Young in Atlanta. I'm sorry, in Alabama. But in Atlanta, they played a great game down that way. But I like them carrying over from last season into next year. They'll add a few more pieces. Bryce Young is confident. The Panthers look like a team that can get into the postseason as well.
I disagree with so much that he just said. Who are the 2 solid receivers on this roster?
It's Calvin Ridley, and he's the only one. Yeah.
Okay. Where's the other one?
Yeah, change 2 to 1.
A really good front 7?
Struggled to get to the quarterback last year.
This is one of the worst pass rushing groups in the sport last year. And I know it's not just about rushing the passer, but that's far more important than how often you stuff the run and force teams into third down situations, because if you can't get to the quarterback on third down, then, what the bleep.
There are pieces to build around up front, but those pieces are Jeffrey Simmons, Devondre Sweat, and I suppose Harold Landry, if you can find some consistent edge rusher play opposite him.
Ann Herndon on YouTube says the Honda Accord, referencing Nick Westbrook-Akina, unrestricted free agent NWI.
He is not a Titan when March 12th comes around.
And he said, what was his description of, I assume he's talking about Chig with the tight end. Did he say a really solid tight end? I don't know. I mean, I've watched Chig Okonkwo for coming up on 4 years, and I still don't know what Chig is. Beyond, he tends to have decent statistics in the second half of seasons when the Titans, in the last couple of seasons, their season has basically been over. And I don't want to let last year's how awful. It's almost impossible, right? This is what I'm talking about being too close, because I watched every game. I went to, probably 2 practices a week out of the 3 practices that they have for the vast majority of the season.
Yeah, I think you did at many points hyperbolize a lot of things about the Titans season, like, they have by far the worst vibes in the NFL this year, like they were the only bad team in the NFL. Well, that's not the case. It doesn't make their season any better.
Vibes were pretty rotten.
Sure.
A lot of the teams that had similar that you could compare them to, like Jacksonville, they got swept by.
Okay, and then you have the New York Giants that are sitting there watching their star man take their arch rival in the division to the Super Bowl while they flounder, right? You have the Cleveland Browns with their quarterback that they paid approximately $2 billion to.
Those are the other 2
right?
examples.
Right, that's all I'm saying. It doesn't make the Titans season any better. This is by far, the most positive outlook from a national voice that we have heard on the Titans.
And not just somebody again, there's plenty of people who talk in front of microphones on a daily basis that hyperbolize things. I am one of them. Emery is not. That's why it's jarring to me, because I know this person, and I know this person's analysis, and I know the level of detail that he brings in his analysis. Like, he's not just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks and guessing how teams are going to finish it in the division, even though that's the prompt, right? The prompt is who gives you the best worst to, or the best possible worst to first vibes coming out of 2024. Did you know that we had not a single team go from worst to first in 2024? That has been something that you could pretty consistently rely upon in the NFL, given the parity.
In terms of the divisions?
Didn't have a single team that finished worst in 2023 go first place in 2024.
So I guess the Giants were the worst team in the NFC East in 2023?
I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah.
Titans were obviously the worst team in the AFC South in 2023. You could go through the divisions. We can if you want to, but it is something that has been pretty reliable in the NFL until last season.
Oh, actually, no, it's not wrong because the Commanders did not win the NFC East. I see what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. They did finish last. They almost went worst to first, but the Eagles were in their division.
So I am continuing to look at this and say, okay, foundation. What are the foundational pieces that the Tennessee Titans have heading into 2025? Jeff, is Amani Hooker a foundational piece? He's in the last year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken. I can double check that.
I think he can be a foundational piece in the defensive backfield.
He may have to be because the rest of them don't play because of injury and they don't have another safety right now. So, okay, I'll hear you on Amani. Jeff, Amani, Harold's still under contract for 2 more seasons. They have an out if they wanted to theoretically release Harold Landry, but there's no real expectation that they would do that. They need more pass rushers, not less. Is that it on defense? I know Cheeto and Snead are on long-term deals.
I'd put Devondre Sweat in there.
Okay, yeah, I'll take
absolutely put him.
I'll hear you on Sweat, but no on Snead and Awuzie.
It's hard to say right now. I mean, Awuzie is
3-year deal.
A 3-year deal.
Snead 4.
Awuzie feels like what could be a cap-saving move if they were to let him go. A potential, if we're to talk about Titans' potential cap cuts. I feel like he could be a candidate.
If you're looking for reasons to get Jarvis Brownlee on the field, one of them is in your way, be it Snead or Awuzie. Yeah. And Awuzie, I'll look up the dead cap hit.
Yeah, and I think we're in a place with Snead where we have to see the sample size of a healthy season before we go about talking about him as a foundational piece. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Hooker, Landry, but Landry's another guy that could be a candidate if you're talking about cap cutting.
If you wanted to clear legit space, you can get out from under Harold deal this year. I just think highly unlikely that a team that has, they don't have a star. They don't have a star defensive player to me. They have a really good player in Jeff. They have a player in Devondre Sweat that I am excited about, that I would buy stock in, that I was maybe surprised is the wrong word, but I was glad to see that he had the success that he did and that some of the issues that he came out of college with didn't seem to plague him at the next level. But the Titans do not have a star defensive front player to me.
I think Jeffrey Simmons.
He's the 4th or 5th best interior defensive lineman
in the NFL.
Yeah.
That doesn't qualify as a star player to you, top 5 at your respective position?
Chris Jones is a star.
Chris Jones is a star. He's not at the level of a Chris Jones.
Chris Jones is a superstar.
Yes. I think top 5 at your position qualifies you.
Okay. I said he's really good. Yeah. Like last year.
He definitely has not been at the level that he was in 2021.
And it's not like Jeff can't have a great game from time to time. He had a couple of them last year, and I'm completely understanding, and this is not, criticism for the sake of criticism. I'm just looking at, generally, they have needs. How much better can they get? Where can they stand to improve? How many players at their position could you possibly say the Titans have a top 5 player at their position? Jeff's the only one.
The other thing is Emory Hunt has been extremely high on both of these quarterbacks, Sanders and Ward, throughout this process. He tweeted...
Which is counter to the we'll call it the popular narrative.
The popular narrative would be that neither Cam Ward nor Shedeur Sanders would be first-round picks in the 2024 NFL draft, right? Would we say that that's the case? Certainly not Sanders.
I think that that's entirely true. I just think that if you looked at, how many of them basically would have been drafted over Bo Nix or Michael Penix?
Yeah.
8 or 12.
Emory tweeted a couple days ago, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are first-round quarterbacks. They would have been last year, too. Don't let them folks lie to you. He tweeted that 3 days ago.
I read that 3 minutes ago.
Tom Pelissero is reporting. You put stock in that, though, right? Because of...
Did you not just hear the whole 10-minute segment I just did based on his analysis starting from there?
You put stock in that. So there is a level of... he has evaluated these guys more than X,
At every level.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, going back to Incarnate Word in Jackson State. So,
Let's just do this again.
I don't want to. I just did it for 13 minutes and he didn't listen to me the first time. Why would he listen to me the second time?
All right, Buck Rising Show, take 2.
99% of the time it's because I am reading the F&M Bank chat.
Reading praise for himself in the F&M Bank chat.
No praise today. No praise today.
You haven't done anything good today.
Nothing to praise.
Is that his oopsie?
I don't. That to me is like collaboration. I don't ever want to hear that word from either of you again. The point is, for Emory, I would like to talk to him at the Combine next week. He will be at the Combine, so we'll see what works with his schedule, and potentially we can record an interview if Emory. I know he typically does CBS Sports HQ hits throughout the course of the Combine where they talk to players, and we'll see if we can accommodate something for him. We'll be up there Tuesday through Friday, so we'll have ample opportunity to talk to a variety of different people like that. Because to your point, Lucas, I trust that Emory has watched these two players far more than anybody else out there doing the scouting analysis. And I know that they're the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft class. And I know that everybody has watched at least some of them at this point, whether it's, 3 games or 5 games or 10 games going back several years. I trust Emory's analysis here. It's not to me about his analysis about the quarterbacks is fine. What he's saying about the Titans to me is insane. Insane. And it's not just because last year, because I'm still, I'll say polluted by the results from last year. The results from last year are going to be difficult to remove yourself from. Brian Callahan is indisputably coming in with some carryover from 3-14. Like, you can't just leave it in the past the way that many football people will tell you, oh, well, that's the past. We don't like to talk about the past. We're focused on moving forward. By the way, that's the correct mindset to have. I don't fault them for saying that. But there is indisputably some level of carryover from what you did last year to how you are going to be viewed in the season that follows. The season that follows the Titans being the worst team in football at 3-14 is that their roster is still a huge part of the problem. And the idea of, quote, template in place, template has been put in place, the foundation is set. Any quarterback you add, Cam or Shedeur, makes this a playoff team. It makes like steam come out of my ears because not because of anger, but because I don't know how to compute that.
Yeah.
Not based on what I watched for 17 games last year.
Like right now, what feels more likely if you inject a rookie quarterback into this team, a Commanders situation or a Panthers 2023 situation where the quarterback is just drowning. The team around him is not good enough.
Well, that's the other thing that confuses me. His analysis on the Panthers, I believe in. Like, the Panthers were a solid football team. Their offensive line that completely let Bryce Young down in 2023 got significantly better. They were infinitely more competitive in their games than the Titans were in theirs.
They had significant improvement over the back half of the season. Bryce Young grew into himself in the back half of the season.
So I'm even willing to hear him on the Panthers. It's the Titans analysis that completely confuses me.
Yeah. And the Panthers, Panthers obviously are not in a spot where they're going to take one of these two quarterbacks. But there's been acknowledgement of this essentially from the Titans front office. The entire emphasis has been on draft capital, on building out the foundation of this roster, on patience over panic. You don't tout patience over panic if you believe that you can compete and go worst to first in the upcoming season. I think the Titans have an understanding of where they're at right now.
Sure, and a lot of this boils down to, you still have to get lucky. We can do all the analysis, we can talk about all the things that make sense on paper, and then you still have to get lucky at the end of the games. Do we think that the Bears got lucky in week 1 because Will Levis threw one of the most confounding interceptions you've ever seen in your life? Did the Bears outright deserve to win that game? Maybe, because they capitalized on the mistakes that the Titans made in the second half. They blocked a punt. They had the pick six, all the things that the Titans did to ruin themselves in that game. But the Bears were beneficiaries of Will Levis's bad luck. They got good luck because Will Levis was bad. Bad in ways that nobody could possibly predict a quarterback could make a decision like that. So luck is still involved in a great deal of this for as much time as we spend scrutinizing and analyzing everything that these teams put into place. And by the way, the things that they spend countless amount of sleepless hours putting together, game planning every specific inch of a football game, only to have weird stuff happen that completely throws it off kilter.
Duck Falling on the F&M Bank chat says, the Titans can go from worst to first. Houston is putting in a new offense. Colts are mid, and Jacksonville is a cluster bleep.
I completely acknowledge that the AFC South is the most ripe for a worst to first situation. I also saw the Titans in a weak AFC South, again, finish in last place. So I hear you. I'm accepting of that possibility. I also saw them squander ample opportunities in a terrible AFC South last year. So, they'll need to earn it. 615-737-1045. We've got time for phone calls. We'll do some SEC observations as well coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. What a perfect way to warm up on a chilly snow day. Then some Hattie B's Hot Chicken. You can even mobile order if you don't feel like getting out and about today. Although the roads, I assume schools are closed, yeah? Schools are closed today?
As far as I know, the roads were pretty clear. Not a lot of traffic this morning.
Well, if you're uncomfortable with the weather conditions, Hattie B's has the mobile delivery app, and if it's your first time ordering Hattie B's on the mobile app, you get a free dessert. HattieB.com for more information. We'll do Lucas's SEC observations momentarily. First, we'll go to the phones. Alex is up next.
Hey, so I agreed with your point last week on Myles Garrett of how it's just not a feasible thing. But the more you look at it, the more you evaluate it, especially with the indications of offensive line being fixed in free agency. If you think Jarvis or Snead is going to be healthy to start the season and can contribute, the more I look at it, I think Myles Garrett changes that defense. You line him and Jeffrey Simmons up on the same side, the blocking schemes are going to be insane. And I think that there's not a single player in the NFL that could transform the defense any more than he could. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that and see if you still feel the same way and go from there.
Thanks for the call. I have no idea whether Snead's going to be healthy at the start of the year or not. I have no idea. He doesn't. He said that the doctors didn't know what was wrong with him for a period of time.
Yeah, the whole thing was weird.
So, I am operating under no assumptions that L'Jarius Snead is going to be a quantity or an entity that I can count upon. Now, maybe that's fine. He can make me eat it at some point and have a nice rebound season and perform up to the level of expectation that he was brought in here to be a number one corner and go above and beyond. But, Myles Garrett would change any defense overnight. It's just, is it worth it to you to give up the number one overall pick plus?
Nothing about the Myles Garrett situation, the reason he wants out, what you would have to give up to get him, nothing about it seems feasible for the Titans to me.
Also, if it's contingent upon him signing an extension, he would give you double middle fingers if you tried to send him to Tennessee. Ready?
So before we get to hoops, big game tonight for the Vanderbilt Commodores, Josh Heupel has made a few key changes on his coaching staff. Obviously, Mike Eckler departed to go to Nebraska, where he is from, where he basically started his coaching career at the college football level.
Coached Will Compton there.
That's right. He was the linebackers coach during Compton's career. He is now the special teams coach under Matt Rule. Talked about wanting to be closer to his family as his parents get older, all of those type of things. Mike Eckler, big energy guy, right? The dynamic energy on the sideline. He was the special teams coordinator, and he was also the outside linebackers coach. Tennessee has had a very stable special teams unit over the last few years. You got to give Eckler credit. They've been near the top of the SEC in punt return yardage allowed throughout his time here. They have been excellent at covering punts. They've had some dynamic punt returners, whether you go all the way back to Heupel's first year with Velus Jones, Boo Carter, an exciting player last year who will continue on in that system for Tennessee next year. And they've churned through some kickers, too, and found some decently steady success with all of them. Eckler gone, Josh Heupel is promoting from within, and he is promoting special teams analyst Evan Crabtree to be the special teams coordinator. But he is adding a longtime NFL special teams coach in John Bonamego to come over and be his special teams assistant. Bonamego has coached special teams at what seems like every NFL franchise: Jags, Packers, Saints, Dolphins, Lions, Rams. He has been the special teams coordinator at one point in his career for all of those teams, in some cases, multiple stints with those teams. He is the former head coach of Central Michigan University. He famously orchestrated one of the coolest regular season moments in my lifetime in the NFL. It was the first Saints game back in the Superdome after Katrina. Remember the Steve Gleason block?
Yeah.
To open that game and scoop and score touchdown. unbelievable moment. He called that play, obviously the most famous, probably, special teams moment from that era of the Saints, the onside kick in the Super Bowl against the Colts. So he is on staff. Josh Heupel promotes an analyst from within and brings in a lot of veteran experience to kind of help prop him up. On top of that, he promotes Lavorne Harbin to the outside linebackers coach. He was a senior defensive analyst last year. I saw some reporting done by Adam Sparks recently that Tennessee has one of the highest payrolls for analysts in the country. So Josh Heupel has kind of built out this network of analysts, which you can have an unlimited number of. To be honest, you can have an unlimited number of coaches on the sideline now in college football. The only thing that you have limitations on is how many coaches can go out on the road in recruiting. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want. And Heupel has taken full advantage of that. And there's a healthy balance here of experience, promoting from within, which Heupel has been one to do in his Tennessee career. And they move forward.
Okay. Good update. Basketball?
Big game tonight for Vanderbilt. Last time Vanderbilt swept Kentucky in the regular season was when?
Oh, I would never guess.
2007.
Okay.
2 years before Cal.
Who was on that
over
Vandy team?
In Lexington. Oh, who was on that Vandy team in 2007? That would have been Shane Foster, I believe. Yeah, Shane Foster was drafted in 2008, so he was definitely playing for Vanderbilt in 2007. So some good teams. Kevin Stallings, obviously the head coach. That is the last time Vandy swept Kentucky in the regular season. They did get 2 wins over Kentucky. Remember a couple years ago when they won at Rupp Arena and then just a few weeks later beat them in the SEC tournament at Bridgestone? But they did lose the home game to Kentucky earlier in that season. So big opportunity tonight for Mark Byington and the Commodores. Tennessee is off this midweek. They will not play until Saturday when they go on the road to a top 10 Texas A&M team. Feels like a good time for the Vols to get a bit of a midweek break, but Vandy tips off at 6 p.m. tonight on SEC Network at number 17 Kentucky. See if they can get it done.
Both squads really need it. Vandy obviously trying to get as many wins down the stretch to bolster their tournament resume. Kentucky trying to provide some level of separation, if at all possible, in what remains of the SEC regular season before we get conference tournament play underway at Bridgestone here in a couple of weeks. I wouldn't necessarily bet it. It just seems to be Tennessee that has a problem with this Kentucky squad. Like, I think that Vanderbilt is capable of the upset.
I agree.
Kentucky is 6.5-point favorite right now, depending on where you look.
If the Vanderbilt that showed up in the first half against Tennessee is the team that shows up at Rupp Arena tonight, then absolutely they're going to have a chance to win this game. I mean, Vanderbilt was playing inspired. They were physical. And honestly, foul trouble was a big reason why Vanderbilt lost that game. Jalen Carey was having one of the best games of his season, 18 points, 7 boards, and he fouled out before the under 4 media timeout. So who knows, just how the tenor of that game changes if he's still in. Devin McLaughlin fouled out late in that game against Tennessee, too. I mean, the Vols were red hot in that second half. Maybe Tennessee still pulls it out. Ifs and buts and all those things. But Vanderbilt has a chance to go into Rupp Arena, be physical. They're not going to be afraid of anything. Mark Byington has his team prepared for seemingly every moment, with the exception of the opening exchanges against Auburn when they found themselves in a 13-0 hole. But they climbed out of it, took a lead at some point before ultimately losing to the number 1 team in the country. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Vanderbilt 17-8, 5-7 in SEC play. Kentucky 17-8, 6-6 in SEC play. You're right. Both teams need this one. I'd say Vanderbilt needs it just a little more for their NCAA tournament resume.
The dumbest thing in sports this week is next. Jackson, do I have things to give away?
Yes, a family 4-pack of tickets to see Nashville SC's opener this weekend at Geodis Park.
All right.
All right. A little soccer back in our lives. They're getting things going at Geodis. You can have the opportunity to take the family or 3 friends if you win the family 4-pack by calling in 615-737-1045 and giving us the dumbest thing in sports this week.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. NFL news this morning. The league is going back to Brazil in the 2025 season as the LA Chargers will play in São Paulo on Friday, September 5th, one day after the season opens on Thursday Night Football in Philadelphia. Josh Heupel made some moves on the Tennessee coaching staff, according to multiple reports Tuesday, promoting special teams analyst Evan Crabtree to special teams coordinator and senior defensive analyst LaVorn Harbin to outside linebackers coach. Both fill the void left by Mike Eckler, who took the special teams job at Nebraska. Heupel also reportedly is bringing in longtime NFL special teams coach John Bonamego as a special teams assistant. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Six 615-737-1045 if you want a family four-pack to this Saturday's match. Is that okay? Can I say match?
Absolutely.
Between Nashville SC and whom? Whom are they hosting?
New England Revolution to kick off the 2025 season. We'll have it for you here on The Zone, but of course, you'd rather be there in person to take it in.
4 tickets to Nashville SC's home opener on Saturday if you can give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045. I would like to start. Patrick Mahomes is the only likable member of his family. I don't know much about his children, but his brother, his wife, his mom ventured into the political discourse in the lead up to the election this year that made her a bit more polarizing than she otherwise might be. And then there is Patrick Mahomes Sr., who has his own level of baggage and was placed on probation last year after he pleaded guilty to a charge of DWI, which was his, if I'm not mistaken, third DWI, was given permission to travel to watch his son in New Orleans this year in the Super Bowl. But then famously, what happened with Patrick Mahomes Sr. in New Orleans at the Super Bowl, or outside of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, almost got into a fistfight.
Almost got into a squabble with former fellow MLB player John Rocker.
About to squabble up, and then they didn't. That one I could not resist.
You proud of that one, are you?
You cannot use the word squabble in relation to Super Bowl week in New Orleans and not expect a squabble up reference. You just can't.
I like that one.
It's on you.
I think I could have gone on just fine without that. Either way, he is now admitting, Patrick Mahomes Sr., that said squabble or near squabble, a dust-up, as some might call it, was faked. Do you know why? Do you know why it was staged?
Tell me.
Because they are trying to drum up interest for the Barstool Sports Rough and Rowdy boxing competition between Patrick Mahomes Sr. and John Rocker. They staged a fake almost fight in the middle of Bourbon Street whilst his son is losing the Super Bowl because he's got a Barstool Sports payday that he wants to drum up interest in. I hate people.
Because the announcement that they were going to fight for Barstool happened, what, a day, 2 days?
The morning after. Portnoy got on Twitter and was like, hey, y'all see this?
Well,
we got him on Rough and Rowdy.
Yeah, we rang him up. We rang him up just moments after they nearly came to blows, and the paperwork is done.
So he's in a court setting having to admit because of this incident that it was staged because he's on probation.
Oh, my goodness.
He's on probation.
You got to be kidding me.
I don't know if he is an actual idiot, all right? I don't know this person, but he is displaying the behavior of a dumbass.
So he has on the record in front of a court of law had to, for legal reasons, explain that this was not an actual near fight.
Also because he missed a piss test. He was supposed to take a urine test on February the 11th, according to his probation officer, that he missed. According to the documents, the officials were slated to admonish Mahomes Sr. for his behavior, although in an apparent effort to avoid trouble, the Chiefs quarterback's dad fessed up that the rocker incident, quote, was a staged altercation to get publicity for a celebrity boxing match.
Wow.
That was celebrity boxing match, I say with just disgust. Celebrity boxing match that was set to take place in April of 2025. Patrick Mahomes Sr., you are the dumbest thing in sports. It's February the 19th. I'm comfortable putting that in as an early submission for the dumbest thing in sports this year.
I could not agree more. It's a great submission, although I will say I greatly enjoy when you, of all people, get infuriated by cheap clout grabs like this.
Oh, I didn't say that I was against cheap clout grabs. I'm just against this particular person.
My dumbest thing in sports
because he's on probation, Lucas.
It is. Oh, it's indisputably dumb. But he's making a lot of money. I've already complained about the NFL and how it handles the international games, pretending like it serves anybody but themselves, pretending, let's not even bring up player safety. Like, I get what you're saying. The answer is money. The answer is always money. They don't care about the other stuff. They don't care that fans lose a home game. Can we just have Roger Goodell not talk about player safety and how there's data that actually shows that an extra game helps player safety and all of these things when you're having players hop on a flight 15 hours to Australia in 2026?
No, you cannot.
Let's just skip that part. If we're going to do this, let's just embrace it. But the dumbest thing in sports this week is the news today that the Chargers will host a game in São Paulo, Brazil at Corinthians Arena. That the Los Angeles Rams will host a game in Melbourne, Australia in 2026. I understand logistically there has to be a home and away team, the coin toss, all these things. But I would like to do away with just that verbiage. I'm just picturing myself as a Rams fan. Oh yeah, we're hosting in Melbourne. Great.
You know, Titans fans just went through it. They gave up a home game in London to the Ravens in 100%. 23? Yeah.
So don't love it for season ticket members that pay to see their team a certain amount of times a year, looking at news that says their team will be hosting, but it will be on the other side of the planet. That's my dumbest thing in sports this week.
Jackson.
I'm going with this from the NBA All-Star Weekend, the skills competition, Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul. So they were doing the skills challenge, and there's a 3-point shoot-around that you have to go around to complete the challenge, but it doesn't hurt you if you miss all the threes. So they just launched, just kind of threw the balls out of bounds to the side, and they were disqualified from the event. But I think they should have counted their time because it never said in the rules you had to make the shots or really even attempt them. And a couple of Wembies hit the backboard and hit the rim. They were just kind of lobbing them up there, and they were disqualified for that.
That is pretty dumb. The NBA All-Star situation, just
all bad.
It's all bad. So defend your boy, LeBron. Maybe we do this later because we do have callers for the dumbest thing in sports this week. But I'm curious to know Jackson's position on LeBron actively protesting the NBA All-Star events, which I'll explain more here in just a little bit if you don't know what I'm talking about. Let's start with Mike.
Hey, Buck.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my dumbest thing in sports this week is Canada booing the anthem, and a preemptive dumbest to tomorrow night, USA booing their anthem.
Oh, just disrespecting the anthems is the dumbest thing in sports this week?
Yeah, they're at TD Garden tomorrow.
Oh, God. They're in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That might be an oh-no.
Well, if there was a racial component, then Boston would be the greatest of oh-nos because Boston famously not great in that particular category.
Not the most sensitive group of people.
No.
I imagine it's going to be a interesting environment.
It's always funny to me the amount of pushback that you get, especially when you highlight some of the incidents that have happened with Boston sports fans and their athletes, like Boston sports team athletes, when you note, maybe not the most racially sensitive type of situations from Boston sports fans. And they say, no, what are you talking about? Boston's not racist. I don't know.
How is this game going to live up to the standard the first one set, just in terms of intensity, the fights at the beginning, the U.S. gets the win. I mean, the bar is high.
The answer is it's in TD Garden.
The bar is high from an entertainment standpoint.
Well, and the fights were premeditated last time, prior to anybody booing an anthem. Either way. So, I don't know if the Canadians come out this time and just punch one of the Kachucks in the face in the first 9 seconds and then, tries to squabble up with somebody else. Don't laugh at that. It was not a good joke. In the middle of this, but I don't know. Speaking of the All-Star stuff, go ahead and give the tickets to Mike because the other guy dropped off. The All-Star game in the NBA, the All-Star weekend in the NBA, it is so bad. LeBron James wouldn't even dress up in the Team USA uniform for the picture. It's not like LeBron James is off to the side. It's not that LeBron James is off to the side in the middle of the Team USA picture, or not Team USA, the NBA All-Stars picture. Like LeBron James is going to be front and center, so everybody's going to notice that the most famous of the professional basketball players is not, can't be bothered to put on the team uniform and tell everybody, a couple hours before that he just wasn't going to participate after the expectation was that he was going to participate. It's crazy to me.
Jackson put on like the 1992 NBA All-Star game.
It looked like a basketball game.
Yeah, it looked awesome just on YouTube last week. Yeah, that thing it has fallen far.
But this is an interesting conversation, and I wonder how the audience feels about this, because famously, most people in Nashville don't consume the NBA. We don't have an NBA team, and there's, some interesting stuff from a Cleveland Cavaliers star, Darius Garland, who, of course, had a brief moment in time at Vanderbilt and still has a home here in Nashville. Him now advocating for the Grizzlies to move to Nashville, which we'll expand on here in just a little bit. But
he's from Nashville.
Sure. He is, or rather the NBA, whether it's Kevin Durant on Twitter or LeBron James, pulling himself out of the All-Star game in the hours leading up, do NBA basketball players take their audience for granted?
Probably to an extent.
Because I'm looking at the difference between the dialogue around the Four Nations competition, which is, there's no NHL value to the Four Nations competition, right? Like, it has no impact on the standings.
Right.
Is there any, I'm sure there's a financial incentive to the team that wins it, but not in the way that the NBA is actively trying to pump money into the in-season tournament to incentivize basketball players during the regular season.
And the NHL is in a particularly unique position to be able to do something like this when its stars are so scattershot across largely these four countries, the U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland. And I know the NBA
it's never been more of an international game,
yes,
basketball.
But even still, it is extremely disproportionately majority Americans in the NBA.
I would think that if you looked up the percentages, and I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but I believe there's something like 150 to 200 international basketball players in the league right now.
And how many players currently play in the NBA?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that number off the top of my head. I'm sure it's somewhere in the 1,000+ range.
Around, no, not that many. You got, 13 people on a team?
I don't know if we were talking about G League. Yeah, Mac McClung is winning the dunk contest, and he's not on an NBA roster, so I don't know.
The NBA has a total of around 540 players across all 30 teams.
Okay, so actively in the NBA, not like as a part of organizations.
Yeah. I guess with hockey, it's so concentrated with those four countries. And there's Russians that play in the NHL, but I feel like Sweden, Canada, Finland, U.S., there's a very healthy balance. Of star power for all four of those countries.
But my thing is, and Jael brings this up because the NBA has done it before, the Europeans versus the Americans. But I don't think it's
into that.
We would be into that. But the American basketball players, it's not the Europeans. I know Lucas, talked about with work ethic.
You're saying they wouldn't get up for it?
I think, and this is as unlike me, I think, a thing to say into a microphone about athletes as I've ever said, but I don't think there's a more entitled or spoiled percentage of the sports professional athlete population than American NBA players. Because they're actively showing you their disinterest in their sport. How the hell are they supposed to Draymond Green is on a television broadcast talking about the style of play and how boring it is. Barkley is famously not shy about ripping what the game looks like right now. I can't even get LeBron to put on the uniform for the NBA All-Star picture. I'm not asking him to play in the game. I would like for him to play in the game, I guess. He's a part of the problem. But
is there something to the NBA needs them more than they need the NBA in a way?
Oh,
because I don't know if that's necessarily the case in the NHL.
Is, yeah, they make infinitely more money than the NHL players.
Oh, yeah.
They are, NBA basketball players are the most famous athletes, American sports athletes, right?
Football.
No. Internationally. I'm talking about on a world, globally, yes. Of the American sports, professional sports offerings.
Yeah, more people in Taiwan know who LeBron is than who Patrick Mahomes is. Sure, but in the U.S., there's no question.
So, from my standpoint, I'm looking at this and saying, I think that the American, and it's a blanket statement, I understand that, and it's probably specific to a handful of players as opposed to the league writ large, but this is a generation of professional basketball players that seems to take their audience entirely for granted. The numbers are awful on the NBA product. The All-Star numbers, I can't even imagine. I would assume they're non-existent. I haven't seen anything produced. Certainly, ESPN is not going to put out any kind of bragging graphic the way that they do around NFL playoff games or
I'd be curious how
anything
it compares,
like that.
How it compares to the what the ratings for the Four Nations Face-Off final will be tomorrow.
Well, that's the thing, because to me, hockey kicked basketball's ass this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
First weekend without an NFL football game or in the middle of the NFL season. I know that the Pro Bowl weekend is not really a football season, but there's a part of football season, but it's there, right? Like it's still technically within the scope of the NFL's season. This is the first weekend outside of the NFL season. You got basketball in front of you, you got hockey in front of you. Both are exhibitions to an extent. The hockey totally drowned out anything NBA related as far as who I was seeing consuming the hockey, especially USA Canada on Saturday, versus who was talking about the NBA because of a couple of different things. One, I think the ability to cape up for international competition is always going to win out because people get up for Team USA basketball.
I was going to say, I felt like that was one of the more memorable Team USA basketball runs in the Olympics of my lifetime last year.
Right, but you got the actual star power this year as opposed to a bunch of fringe players.
They were all invested. They were all like Kevin Durant. I mean, I saw a clip from a documentary that's coming out on Netflix. It might already be out of KD talking about playing on the Olympic stage for the U.S.
Down in tears.
He literally started to tear up.
And that's not who you think Kevin Durant is. They don't show that passion during the NBA season at all. There's something different about international competition. So you've got that the Four Nations has on its side, right? You've got the added drama of what's going on in the political tensions between the USA and Canada. Adding to that, the entire tariff situation with Trump and Trudeau going back and forth. We don't have to get into the political side of things, but there's no question that it contributes to the charged atmosphere. You compound that by, in Canada, having the American anthem booed, and then added to that, the premeditated fights that the Kachuk brothers and some other members of Team USA decided, all right, we're just going to come out swinging.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't gotten to represent their countries against one another since 2014.
So there's a couple of different factors working in favor of hockey versus basketball this time around. I'm not fool enough to think that professional hockey is going to overtake professional basketball in American sports culture. Like hockey still has some uphill stuff that they have to work against, and basketball is still one of the most popular sports, even if the NBA itself has lost a lot of its luster. But I saw investment, I saw passion, I saw high-level effort from the hockey players that was non-existent anywhere around the All-Star weekend. Again, I can't even get an NBA player to win the dunk contest. It's Mac McClung on the G League team.
Some of my favorite moments in sports come on the international stage. And sports that I'm not even totally invested in. Like, I'm obviously a soccer guy. There is no greater sporting event on the planet to me than the World Cup. It's the best of the best of the best, whether it's the level of play, the quality, the passion from the players.
Despite being soaked in corruption.
Yeah, even then. And that's coming to the U.S. in 2026. I can't wait. But you and I obviously are not baseball guys. Remember how much we talked about the World Baseball Classic last year and that walk-off win, Japan over the U.S.? I know the U.S. lost that game, but that is the most fun I have ever had watching baseball until Tennessee won the national championship. Right next to it, though. Watching Shohei Ohtani, typically this just stoic personality who fans have a hard time really getting to know and relate to, right? Just celebrating like it was the greatest moment of his life. Man, for me, those moments almost always come at the international stage when players care. And we saw it last year with Steph Curry in the Olympics. And we're seeing it right now with the U.S. hockey team.
So, and this is in lieu, the Four Nations is in lieu of the NHL All-Star events.
Correct, yes. No All-Star game, no skills competitions, just a Four Nations tournament, round robin, duke it out.
So I don't know that you can do these things on an annual basis because of the Olympic cycle, and both sports obviously have Olympic components.
Yeah, and NHL players will be back in the Winter Olympics.
Right. So it's not exactly an easy solution to just say, well, replace the NBA All-Star weekend with international competition. I mean, MLB's All-Star game is the only one that's worth a damn at this point in time. And, the hockey All-Star game it's enjoyable. I've watched it a couple of times. I wouldn't say that it's must-see television necessarily. Not like this, right? And honestly, I think we undersold the Four Nations tournament heading in the lead-up to this just because we haven't been, you and I specifically haven't been dialed in on hockey because the Preds are awful.
Yeah, Gus Nyquist was the first Nashville Predators player to do something good in the Four Nations face-off when he scored the equalizing goal against the U.S. the other day in Sweden's win over America. But yeah, Pekka Rinne's been benched. Forsberg never found the back of the net. But yeah, like you said, the geopolitical stuff just adds another layer to it between U.S. and Canada.
Bradford on YouTube asks why there is a politically charged atmosphere between Canada and the U.S. Didn't Trump say recently he wanted to make Canada the 51st state?
You got both presidents.
They're leveling economic, not sanctions, but tariffs against one another. Trudeau is making statements again. This, not to dip our toe into the political discourse, but this was just in the news. Like, Trudeau is making statements to the American people saying this will hurt you if it goes through. And Trump, they've famously not had a great relationship dating back to Trump's first presidency. But yeah, Canadians are pissed at the American government. And that's why they booed the anthem.
Iconic moments in international sports are also born out of the geopolitical foundation that sets the table for it. Even the fictional ones like Rocky, when it's the Cold War, the U.S., against Russia in the 80s. In soccer, the U.S. and Iran, all the political tensions in the late 90s, and they played each other in the World Cup. And that went the other way. That was kind of a coming together where they all took a photo together afterwards in a time of great tension and sort of stress between the two nations. So it just amplifies everything.
I always laugh when people do the stick to sports things and then the Canadians are booing the American anthem and I'm looking around being like, now you want me to stick to sports? Canada, stick to sports. It doesn't work that way. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We'll take a look at some free agent options versus draft options for the Titans as far as the wide receivers go and the offensive line. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Friends, if you're new to Nashville or you've been here a long time, odds are you've got a clean-out project that the missus would like to see done by the spring when all that snow is melted away. The most reliable folks I know that can help you are my friends at J&J Services. For over 20 years, J&J Services have been providing dumpsters for local businesses, construction sites, home cleanouts, and demolitions. They provide commercial dumpster service for your favorite restaurants and convenience stores. They provide roll-off dumpster service for everyone from 60-story high-rises to your neighbor's farm. J&J Services can offer trash compactors to make those large loads a little bit smaller. They can even supply you with porta potties for your special event for the safest, most reliable service you can get in Middle Tennessee. Call them for a free quote at 615-599-7778. JNJServices.com, where they always keep it trashy.
Welcome back to the show. Titans offensive line situation been down bad for a while. So let's take a look specific to the offensive line. We did this exercise yesterday with quarterbacks. I think we could do this for the rest of the week, to be honest with you, on positional needs, because the Titans have needs at, what are the positions that the Titans do not have a need at?
Oh, do not have a need at. I mean, look, they have, what?
Punter.
Oh, punter. Yes, punter is one. They have bodies at corner. They have talented bodies at corner. So I don't think that's not a priority. I don't think that's a priority.
I accept that, but I got so little out of Snead and Awuzie last year that I can't in good conscience not consider it a need when I saw I honestly never figured out whether it was Darrell or Darrell Baker. The outside corner, and Jarvis Brownlee. But
Snead's under contract and he's making a lot of money. You're not going to move that guy. So
I'm not saying that you move that guy. I'm just saying, like, what level of contribution can you actually expect? I have zero expectations of L'Jarius Snead. Based on him as a Titan, not him as a two-time Super Bowl winning corner for the Chiefs. I don't care about that. Him as a Titan, I didn't get anything out of the experience last year. So I'm looking at that and saying, all right, if you can't count on definitively your top of market corner being available for you, then you need to continue to add depth, because Baker and Brownlee were fine for what they are. One, a practice squad player that fared all right in extended opportunities, and another one, a fifth-round rookie corner who fared all right in extended opportunities. Wasn't good enough on a bad defense. They need to be better across the board.
So is that a need or a want? Because there is a difference. Like running back, is that a need?
A need
want?
is cornerback. A need is quarterback, obviously, but a need is cornerback depth. That's not a want. That's a need. Just as running back depth is a need and not a want. Tajay Spears is not, like, there's nothing set in stone that Tajay Spears has to be running back 2 for all of time.
Yeah.
You know, like, and what Pollard's contract is 3 years. He's already through the first year of it. He just set a career high. How much better is the Tony Pollard experience going to get?
We'll see.
We don't know, but if that's what the career high looks like, and the running back position historically,
he's 27. He'll be 28 in April.
Okay. These things can fall off at any given point. I'm just saying that there's nothing to preclude me from taking a running back if running back on my draft board is the best position available at the time that I'm ready to draft in. Let's say they don't have a third-round pick right now, but let's say the 4th round. If there's a running back there that they really like over the next safety, the next linebacker, the next corner, then yeah, I'm completely fine with them taking another running back, because there's nothing about the Titans running back situation that's set in stone to me, other than Pollard had a really, really nice year on a really, really bad football team last year.
Left tackle's not a need, but it doesn't mean they can't go get a left tackle and move J.C. Latham to right. Ronnie Stanley,
Freudian slip,
is the name that is floating around as the best available free agent left tackle. He is 31 years old. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31 this coming season. And he played in every game for the Baltimore Ravens for the first time in his career that he appears in every game of the regular season in 2024.
If you're Baltimore, now left tackle is an interesting kind of test case for this, because the Ravens historically, they produce pass rushers year in, year out, and they're very content to let them walk. Now, I know Matabike is a player that they kept under contract, but like I think back to Zadarius Smith as a great example of this. They seem to find players like Zadarius Smith with their compensatory selections that they always end up gaining because they let players like that walk. Left tackle is a different situation. It's easier to find, I would argue it's easier to find pass rushers than it is quality left tackle play. And I know Ronnie Stanley's missed a ton of time across his Ravens career, certainly since he signed that contract. I would be curious to see if Baltimore, in a not ideal cap situation, doesn't go out of their way to try and keep Ronnie Stanley.
Maybe
I don't think you tag him, because the tag is 25 for an offensive lineman.
The spot track market value on Stanley is 20.7 average annual salary.
That's about right for a starting caliber, average to above average left tackle. And I think he's proven that he's that when he's available. He is 30 years old. So it wouldn't be like an overwhelmingly long-term solution, but I'd listen, if Ronnie Stanley hits the open market, it would be the exception, not the rule. Players like Ronnie Stanley, the caliber of left tackle that he is, rarely come available. Now, sometimes they do. It's not like this never happens. But if an organization like Baltimore is comfortable letting a player like that walk, it could speak to the depth of the draft class, but tackle is not regarded as an overwhelming strength here. There are some tackles that are talked about, whether it's, Connerly out of Oregon. I would say there's probably what? 4 or 5 tackles in the top 50 this year that people talk about, whether it's Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Ravens could go that route if they so choose. But I would just be shocked to see Ronnie Stanley actually become available. That's why it's tough to do these free agent things right now. But he is scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent.
Yep.
So, yeah, Ronnie Stanley would be a great option. It would allow you the flexibility to move J.C. Latham to right. It would allow you to address both of those tackle situations moving forward. It would make the biggest thing that you have to figure out your right guard and who's going to start at center for you in the immediate. Depending on how long it takes Lloyd Cushenberry to come back from his injury, the question is the tackle solution, right or left, best solved in free agency this year or the draft? If Ronnie Stanley is available, I would advocate for free agency. I would advocate that is worth $20 million, and spot track typically low on the market valuations. So let's just say, what's the biggest number that you would be comfortable with Ronnie Stanley at on an average annual value? Because 20 feels low to me. Like, he's not going to make the same amount of money as Trey Smith is next year.
Likely not. Smith, obviously, much younger.
Like, I'm good with Ronnie Stanley if it's a 3-year deal up to, and you can make the cap hits flexible as you like, an average annual value of 23 and a half. I'm good with that.
What, a 2-year deal?
2-year, 3-year. He's 30 years old. If you need to make it a 3-year deal to work with the guaranteed money up to a certain extent to make that worth the cost, you also work with the no state income tax situation that Tennessee has at its disposal. Jael says, is there zero hope that Nicholas Petit-Frere gets better over the offseason? This organization, I don't know who they can't wait to move on from faster, Will Levis or Nicholas Petit-Frere. I might argue that it's NPF.
Or Traylon Burks.
No, they tried the Traylon Burks thing far longer than they tried the NPF thing. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard a coach publicly talk about the right tackle situation being as insufficient as Brian Callahan did this right tackle situation all last year. What did he say in his locker room cleanout day press conference? You'll probably see multiple different options there beyond what we had this year.
Yeah, I mean, he has said we thought we were going to get more out of Nicholas Petit-Frere, right tackle.
NPF, to me, is a sunk cost. Maybe he goes on to succeed elsewhere, but you just saw him spend a year with the best offensive line coach going right now and be as bad as I remember his rookie season being, which was only not the worst because Dennis Daly was playing opposite him.
Yeah, in the first half of the year. No, this was the worst we have seen of NPF. Yeah. We talked about it. Like
awful.
This was worse than the rookie year, even if it's because the spotlight was off of him in 2022, especially in the first half of the season.
So that you can chalk that up to another. NPF was a top 100 draft pick, wasn't he? He's a third-round pick? I'm pretty sure he was selected before.
He was a top 100 pick, yeah.
He was selected, 80-something?
69.
Nice.
Yeah.
He is another top 100 pick of the 11 top 100 picks that John Robinson had in his last 3 drafts that will not have been a hit. 615-737-1045 is the number. So to me, left tackle, we can talk more about interior offensive linemen maybe later in the draft process, but left tackle to me best solved through free agency if and only if Ronnie Stanley is available. Coming up next, a Nashville-based NBA player wants the Grizzlies to move to Nashville. We'll talk about it on Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Trajan Wealth is here to help you because you've definitely asked yourself, will I have enough money when I retire, or when should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. They're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind, so call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. We just talked about the NBA and the NHL and the respective weekends that the two of them had. The NBA, a resounding failure with All-Star Week in general, and the lack of interest shown not even by the audience, but actively by the players. That was very confusing to me, versus the Four Nations tournament, which is going on right now. The excitement that the USA versus Canada brought on Saturday. I know the USA lost their next game to Sweden.
They lost to Sweden, but they had already qualified for the championship game, which is tomorrow night in this round-robin format. So Sweden just kind of got to go out on a good note.
And so it is interesting to kind of look at the disparities between interest level in the two events just this past weekend, and then kind of the problem that the NBA has. I believe that there are basketball fans everywhere in the United States of America, but I don't believe that there are NBA fans in nearly the same way. Like, college sports are always going to carry a great deal more passion, and there are some specific markets. You talk about Boston, Philadelphia, New York. The NBA is always going to carry considerably more weight there because there has to be something to fill the void that, for example, college football in that part of the country does not occupy. That's just really not a part of their sports consumption. The NBA occupies a much bigger space in that. But I'm looking at Adam Silver as one of the worst sports commissioners of my lifetime.
He's not getting into Rob Manfred territory yet, but NBA fans are, I don't know, Rob Manfred feels like he's in a category of his own.
No, but baseball's doing better. Like, the changes that baseball has made have been for good.
Yeah.
They have made positive change. And I know Manfred's a dope, and he has some dopey public moments. Maybe I shouldn't call him an outright dope, but he's got some public dopey moments that make him a bit more cringy. But Silver, the only thing that Adam Silver has done correctly that I can tell, and that has been to the health and success of the overall sport, is getting rid of Donald Sterling.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. The product in basketball is not better for Adam Silver being the person who's overseeing all of this, the financial situation in the NBA. Yeah, live sports rights still command a certain price point, and that will be the thing that carries streamers or television networks or whatever our media consumption looks like into the future, because that's the one thing that's DVR or on-demand proof, live sports, live events. But there's nothing about the health of the NBA that is better for Adam Silver. Like, what must Stern have thought, or and obviously he's passed on, but the change in how seriously people take the NBA from Stern to Silver is night and day. Like the Luka trade. Remember the trade that was nixed with Chris Paul going to the Lakers 1,000 years ago, which is crazy because Chris Paul is still an active NBA player, and that feels, I mean, it probably was close to 20 years ago at this point in time. And the competitive advantage that would have tilted in the NBA. The Luka trade is another example of that, of Adam Silver being like, yeah, I feel for Mavs fans, but nothing we could necessarily do to stop that, in a way that previous administrations probably would have stepped in and been like, wait, you getting ready to do what? The worst trade, or arguably the worst trade in the history of our sport? No. This is not something that we can afford to have in one of our markets.
Yeah, but
these things are real, Lucas.
I get it, but I'm not going to sit here and blame Adam Silver for the Luka trade, saying he should have stepped in and nixed it.
It's a small part of the Adam Silver experience, which is that he doesn't seem to have a level of institutional control that his predecessor did, nor that, I mean, Roger Goodell is the most effective commissioner of the major sports, yes?
Yeah, the NFL.
For his league, he is the most effective. Maybe not for the audience, and the audience is bemoaning international games and things like that, but for his league.
There's no such thing as a commissioner that is just universally praised among the fan base of that respective sport.
No, but it's not about the fan base. It's about, do you deliver for your business? Does Adam Silver deliver for his business? I would argue definitively no. Roger Goodell definitively yes.
Your asterisk there for Goodell was kind of how he's viewed, but that's the case for every commissioner. Sure. Yes, there's no question from a business standpoint. He has orchestrated the most successful period in NFL history. It might not be everybody's favorite. Everybody has their favorite era, but it is the most successful from a commercial standpoint.
So I don't know what can be done, and I wish that I could offer solutions that would help rejuvenate the national level of interest, because I would like to talk about basketball. here. And there's just not an audience for it. I mean, hell, in the markets where there is basketball, where there's been historically good basketball, like I saw the other day, Front Office Sports put out something about the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are a championship organization. They're obviously not having their best year, and they just traded away Jimmy Butler for a handful of parts and pieces to the Golden State Warriors, so they're lacking a little bit in star power too. But their ratings are down in a basketball market 56% locally, on a local level. And that's one example of that, but I don't know how you stop the bleeding with the NBA. Now, everybody's offering all kinds of solutions, including Darius Garland.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've buried the lead here. Darius Garland has a suggestion.
I was getting there. Darius Garland, there's a lot of talk out there about NBA expansion, WNBA expansion. I know you talked about it when I was out on Monday. Nashville not expected to get the 2028 bid for the WNBA. That's expected to go to Cleveland. We'll see if Nashville can't field a more competitive bid the next time around that expansion is being considered. But NBA expansion also on the table. Darius Garland, Nashville native, played at Vanderbilt. Injury ended his collegiate career sooner than you would have liked. That team, what could have been with that team at that time with the amount of high-profile recruiting
Bryce Drew
that they were doing, and then things just really never panned out for Bryce Drew. But Darius Garland went on to be a player for the Cavs. The Cavs are having a hugely successful season as one of the NBA's best teams. And he was asked by The Athletic where the NBA should expand because Vegas and Seattle are among the top contenders for Seattle getting a team back after the Supersonics moved to OKC. And then Vegas, obviously, professional sports have a deeply vested interest in taking their product everywhere to Vegas. But Darius Garland says this, quote, Nashville, because I live here. How about we move from Memphis to Nashville? Put a team in Vegas, a team in Paris, a team in Dubai, and a team in Saint-Tropez. So Grizzlies fans, not going to love that. The idea of the Grizzlies moving to Nashville has been floated before. J.J. Redick talked about it.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about the Redick thing until this article in the Commercial Appeal reminded me that in a podcast with Evan Turner, he said it would make sense for them to move, and he had to put out a lengthy.
He had to apologize.
Yeah,
to the Grizzlies.
He said they're a great organization. Memphis has a soul, a culture. The Grizzlies should never leave Memphis. All right, let me say that. I should not have co-signed that. I made a mistake. I apologize, Memphis. I apologize.
I apologize.
J.J. Redick, a Cookeville native.
That's right.
Oh.
He is. When he got the Lakers job, that's when I learned that he's from Cookeville, Tennessee. I had no idea.
Lake Show?
Where Billy Napier is also from. But yeah, he must have really heard from Grizzlies fans. This apology screams, okay, I'm sorry.
But Memphis has been fighting this for years, basically since Nashville got the NFL.
And they're having a nice season.
No, they're having an excellent season.
Number 2 team in the West right now.
Oh, so they've moved up because the last time I wouldn't say that I watched the Grizzlies religiously because I know we're not going to talk about them on a nightly basis. Other than they're the best team in the state of Tennessee, and we're talking about a guard.
Yeah, they're half a game up on the Nuggets for number 2 in the West.
Well, because they had been the 3rd team in the West for a considerable amount of time, so I guess they've advanced in the standings since then.
They're about to do massive renovations to FedEx Forum as well. So they're not leaving. This is literally just Darius Garland, Nashville native, saying, oh, that'd be cool. But it's not going to happen. And also the Cavs go to Memphis in a month. So we'll see how he is greeted.
That'd be a game worth seeing. The idea, though, of Nashville as a viable pro sports market, right? Because baseball is trying desperately. Well, the people that are organizing for baseball are trying desperately to put themselves in the best possible position should legitimate funding drop out of the sky and show interest in baseball, that Nashville has a baseball infrastructure in place to help facilitate that possibility. But it's still a pipe dream right now. And, I'm sure the Music City baseball people would tell you in an honest moment that that's true. It's the thing that they're fighting against the most. They can put Eddie George and, Tim McGraw and as many Nashville Stars jerseys as they want, but until they have funding, it's kind of just a fantasy proposition. WNBA, we've talked about that. It would make a lot of sense. It's not something that Memphis has. It's a basketball product, a pro basketball product that would be exclusive to Nashville, and I think Nashville would support it. How real is Nashville as a viable pro sports market for other pro sports that they don't already have when we're already dealing with the NHL, the NFL, the MLS, and right now AAA baseball? It's an interesting thing to kind of consider as the city continues to grow and expand, how much the new Nissan Stadium will contribute to this, as well as far as the profile and the level of events that the city is able to have. I don't know. It's not Vegas for obvious reasons, but it's definitely trending in that direction. Speaking of things trending in a different direction, Netflix is looking to make a serious play that would interrupt how you typically consume your NFL on Sundays. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you because they've helped so many guys over the course of a decade plus here working in Middle Tennessee, because whether it's low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between, they've got you covered. Their clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. And specific to ED treatment, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about getting the kind of treatment that you need. Do not go through processes like irreversible surgery to treat ED before you have talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols, like I mentioned, and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy and don't feel like you're out of options. Schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. In NFL news this morning, the league is going back to Brazil in 2025 as the Los Angeles Chargers will play in São Paulo on Friday, September 5th, one day after the season opens on Thursday Night Football in Philly. Josh Heupel made some moves on the Tennessee coaching staff, according to multiple reports Tuesday, promoting special teams analyst Evan Crabtree to special teams coordinator and senior defensive analyst Lavorne Harbin to outside linebackers coach. Both fill the void left by Mike Eckler, who took the special teams job at Nebraska. Heupel also reportedly brings in longtime NFL special teams coach John Bonamego as special teams assistant. College hoops tonight, Vandy looking for the season sweep against Kentucky. They travel to Rupp Arena, tip-off at 6, and the Belmont Bruins are at home tonight hosting Northern Iowa. 6:30 is the tip-off at the Curb. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour here with us. We're happy to have you. Are you happy with your Netflix subscription? No, this isn't an advertisement, but it's just a general question. Dipping their toe into live streamed rights. The first attempt at it was a catastrophic failure. The Love is Blind reunion show that they tried to live stream. Lucas just talking to Bert and I about his consumption of Love is Blind, which I believe to be, I've seen a lot of dumb reality television shows, and they have an audience, so maybe I'm the dumb one. But, like, I've never actively recoiled from my television screen during any of them the way that I did during Love is Blind.
It is the quintessential walk into a room and it's on show where you scoff at it, say this stuff is so stupid, and then fast forward 2 hours and you're on the couch watching it.
I didn't. That was not my experience, but I appreciate that it was yours. Either way, the Love is Blind reunion was a live-streamed event, and Netflix cratered in the middle of it. Then they go about it with the Tom Brady roast. The Tom Brady roast was a success. It was one of the Netflix most viewed properties in 2024, and they say, okay, we'll continue to ramp this up. We've got Christmas NFL games and the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. The Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight does not go off without a hitch. It has some technical difficulties that they have to work through, but by the time Netflix gets to Christmas Day, they're in pretty good shape. Now, there is reporting from NBC, specifically Pro Football Talk, that a major shakeup in the broadcast landscape of NFL games could be coming by the end of the decade, so it's not an immediate thing. But Netflix is looking to snag a Sunday afternoon package from Fox or CBS. So these are the details being reported by Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. The NFL's looming development of a full-blown Sunday morning international package had some thinking that Netflix, given its global footprint, would be interested. So again, Lucas, it's about the international monetization of the NFL. Can you put international games on an international platform like Netflix, and they do better? Netflix, however, Florio adds, is thinking bigger than the lower profile, smaller audience slate. Chief Content Officer Bella Bajaria, forgive me if I've mispronounced that, told an outlet called Puck, P-U-C-K, that the company is interested, that Netflix is interested in bidding on the NFL's Sunday afternoon games. They have been exclusively the property of CBS since 1994, after CBS snatched the AFC package from NBC in 1998. The current broadcast deals run through 2033. The league has the right to pull the plug on the deals 4 years early. So important to note. So they run through 2033, but unlike like the ACC and ESPN's package, like there's a bailout option for the league here. The league has the right to pull the plug on the deals 4 years early, and it likely will, because it presents an opportunity to renegotiate. So a major shakeup could be coming, with Netflix becoming a very major player in the NFL broadcast landscape. And if Netflix is in, one of the current partners will be out, or at best relegated to Sunday mornings. Netflix
Sunday mornings, what would that look like? Like a 10 a.m. kickoff?
I mean, depending on how they've already kind of cornered the market on 8:30 a.m. is the exclusive, like Central Time is the exclusive
London
international window.
Depends on where the game is being played.
But that to me tells me, one, that 2029, this is probably going to happen. Two, that the NFL is considering adding an additional window to spread football out more throughout the course of the day because they're not seeing a sufficient enough dip in that morning slate that they couldn't put on NFL games in the morning, and it wouldn't be consumed by some people across the country, whether you're in the Eastern time zone and you want the experience of having NFL on at 11 a.m. as opposed to 1 p.m. My Netflix package right now, and I have the 4K option, Jackson, you told me?
You have the 4K premium, the most expensive one.
Okay. And that
$24.99 a month.
$24.99?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm paying $24.99.
Does Jackson manage your Netflix account?
No, he told me how much the charge was. And
I looked at the charge, yeah.
Okay. You don't know what you're paying for on Netflix?
No, I don't.
Well, you did this morning.
Well, yeah, I looked this morning.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about it.
I just figured it was your parents' account or something.
No, I am one of the few people that has all of my own streaming accounts. I don't grift off of previous lovers and parents and all kind of other things.
Buddy, you're just financially not making smart decisions.
I know, especially since my Xfinity got hit for like $300 this morning. That was not ideal.
Ooh.
Yeah. Everybody I know grifts at least one or two streaming services off a family member, a significant other.
So I get my Disney Plus and my Hulu through my Verizon, and I pay my own phone bill, obviously. I get my HBO through, or I guess it's Max now. I get Max through my Xfinity package, so that's tacked on to, my total bill of $300 plus a month, which is a bit outrageous, but I'll call Xfinity about it and negotiate a price, I suppose, at some point. I'm paying we'll call it $25 a month for Netflix. I have Apple TV, and I think that's it. Oh, and I also get I get the Paramount Plus, I get Peacock through my cable package. So I have all of these things myself.
Not a Hulu guy?
No, I get Hulu, like I said, because it's a Disney Plus bundle through my Verizon. So if I'm paying $25 a month for Netflix, what's the basic option?
The basic option, $7.99 with ads. I believe it's $14.99 if you don't want ads, but you don't want 4K. So that's like the middle.
All right. So at that point, you are talking about a significant, I'm assuming that if Netflix gets into the NFL game, that price at every level at least doubles. Now, that would be something that we would have to talk to somebody smarter than us about the business of sports media rights and things like that. But essentially, let's just look at it that way for this hypothetical. Would you be comfortable with doubling the amount of money that you pay a month for Netflix if you got NFL game, if you got the NFL Sunday package included? Now, there's reason to think that it might be more than double because of the rate of NFL rights.
People would pay for it. People say they wouldn't pay for it, but they would pay for it. This is not going to slow down, obviously. The NFL has just slowly expanded its presence in the streaming footprint year over year. And honestly, they crushed the Christmas broadcasts. All of the games broadcasted on NFL last year, the talent was good.
They made them special
The production
events.
was good.
They did, because at a certain point, ESPN and CBS and NFL Network are going to stop loaning out their talent to Netflix. This was a very lucrative deal, I'm sure, for these networks to essentially pick which of the talents from all of the networks.
Netflix will have to hire its own talent.
Right. So that will become a different kind of situation. But I'm just curious to know from the audience whether or not they would be comfortable either doubling and potentially more than doubling the amount of money that you're paying for Netflix a month, assuming that you get the NFL Sunday afternoon package. So that we're talking about the noon slate, essentially. Right?
No, it'd be the 3:30 slate is what I thought it would be.
That's just one game, though.
That's more than one game.
No, that's always more than one game.
More teams play at 3:30.
No. More teams play at noon. The noon slate has way more games.
Most teams play at noon.
Most teams play at noon, but there is more than one game at 3:30.
There's usually 4 or so.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There's
See, I'm usually working.
It's staggered. There's a 3:05, there'll be a 3:25, and there's usually approximately, depending on the week, right around 4 matchups happening in the late afternoon slate. Now, I wonder how this would impact something like Red Zone, which, by the way, Scott Hansen, his situation with Red Zone seems to be slightly up in the air. He tweeted something the other day that, hey, going to let you know, what I'll be doing. Hope everybody's doing well, that type of thing. But how would this then, if Netflix has rights to late afternoon games, regular season games in the NFL, how would that ripple out and affect programs like NFL Red Zone, which is NFL Red Zone is probably the most successful, for lack of a better term, a la carte thing the NFL has in terms of watching the NFL, right? That's not just cable, whatever's on TV is on TV.
Yeah.
Like that by far has to be their most revenue generating.
I would think so.
Yeah, not streaming, but
again, we don't have the numbers, so we could be off base about this. I don't want to speak.
But Red Zone is hugely successful. Yeah. I'd be curious if Netflix were to get exclusive rights to late afternoon games, if that would impact NFL Red Zone.
I doubt it because it's still the league's product.
Then what's the point in paying for the? I mean, I guess if you just want to watch that game and just watch that game, but.
Well, to me, the point is if you want to, so say at some point, my cable package is going to get too expensive for me to, it's that $300 plus a month it's a bit outrageous. $317.39 is what they charge my account today.
Does that include internet?
Yes. And I have the diesel internet because of the primetime show.
Cut the cord, buddy.
But like, Lucas, I'm okay with it. And I know that I'm speaking from a position of a degree of privilege here, but like, I'm totally cool with it because I don't want to have to hunt all these things down. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to, I know, and at some point there will have to be an evolution in my consumption, but because I don't have to go out of my way to find these things or come up with all these different streamers that Bert is getting, viruses on his laptop because he's dialed in trying to watch Ravens games.
Oh, yeah.
In Middle Tennessee. Like, meth streams or crack streams or all these different things. Meth Streams is a real one. I don't know if Crack Streams is.
I think Crack Streams might have been the OG.
The Ripple Effect, an apt username on the F&M Bank chat as we talk about the ripple effect of streaming services in the NFL, says Red Zone won't show that game on Netflix like they do the game on NBC. But
do they not do that? Oh,
no, because it's a standalone game.
Okay,
like
got it.
NFL Red Zone is on for the noon games and the late afternoon games, not Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, or Monday Night Football. So if Netflix is acquiring rights to games that are part of the late afternoon slate, then that wouldn't be the case, I want to think, because that's not just a standalone game. And if it's me, I have no reason to pay the Netflix subscription if I can watch NFL Red Zone and get all the moments, all the big moments, everything that happens in those games. If it's my team that's playing, if it's the Titans, I'll either be working or being able to watch locally. So that's my number one question about it in terms of this specific discussion. I know the NFL is going to go deeper and deeper into the streaming world, but if it's actually going to wade into late afternoon slate type of games, exclusive streaming rights, how does that impact one of the most important media properties the NFL has, which is NFL Red Zone?
But, like, I understand that, like, Fox and CBS, they're local channels that a lot of people can get with, like, a antenna, but it hasn't stopped people from watching those games standalone in the past. So I don't know how Red Zone takes away from that.
It's not an immediately apparent answer.
Or it doesn't make it less viable, in my opinion, to have a late afternoon slate on Netflix that's also on Red Zone, because that's how it's been for years.
And I'm just assuming that it would continue to be whip around coverage. Like they're not going to.
Well, yeah, it is it's always whip around coverage. But you're right, Jackson. But if you are a fan of that team, you can just watch that game on television, right? You watch that game, in your local market. If you don't want to watch the whip around coverage on television, now you're being asked to pay whatever price it would be on Netflix to be able to watch that game. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that all comes together.
Well, when it's your local team, a lot of the times with these like Amazon Prime games, they do put them on a local channel.
Right.
But I don't know if that would be the case.
Yeah, on Netflix. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
true.
I think it would have to be, though.
Thursday Night Football in market is locally on television here in Nashville. Yeah. So, that is another big question here.
Well, speaking of television conundrums, the college football playoff is getting ready to undergo, again, significant change, not next year, but in 2026. Stuart Mandel of The Athletic wrote a pretty strongly opinionated piece on why the SEC and the Big Ten are responsible for the continued ruination of the thing that college sports fans love the most. We'll talk to Stuart coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. It's our great pleasure to be joined for the first time on the show by Stuart Mandel of The Athletic. You can read all the work that he and his colleagues do covering the world of sports journalism at theathletic.com. And his latest, the arrogance of the Big Ten and SEC leaders on full display in New Orleans at the college football meeting. So when I was out on Monday, there was some news to the effect of the Big Ten and SEC building momentum to continue to further expand the college football playoff to 14 or 16 teams, not next year, but in 2026. And Stuart, one of several people that has offered impassioned opinions about the Big Ten and SEC. Let me know if I'm mischaracterizing this, Stuart. Have they essentially threatened to take their ball and go home if they don't get their way? Because it reads like they're kind of petulant children in the middle of all of this.
Yeah, really, that happened a year ago when all parties agreed to this new ESPN contract that begins in 2026. That's exactly what happened. They basically came into the room and said, you're gonna give us more of the revenue. You're gonna give us effectively veto power, where we can change the format without your opinion, without your permission. And I think the other conferences felt like they didn't have a choice. And so now that they do have that, that unilateral ability to make changes to the format, well, now the next step will be implementing changes that favor those two conferences even more than they already do.
I guess the question is not do they deserve it, because obviously their product carries the most weight in the scope of not just football but basketball and major collegiate athletics across the board. But is this the right decision? And if not, why?
What it is it's unnecessary. Those two conferences are going to get around 8 bids between them every year. If you under the current format with the selection committee determining most of those teams, when you put it in writing ahead of time, first of all, just last year the SEC only got 3, so you're saying we deserve 4 whether it's a good year for the conference or not, and you're also just giving the perception that it's not a fair system, that it's a system that preemptively favors 2 conferences over all the others. And they just really don't need to do that. If you just kind of let the games play out, more often than not, like I said, those conferences will produce most of the majority of the playoff teams in whatever size field you want to make. And they will probably win the most games as well, as we saw this past season, without having to put it in writing.
It's just frustrating. Stuart Mandel of The Athletic here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can check out his latest piece on potential college football playoff expansion at theathletic.com. I'm wearing not ironically or anything like that, but I just happen to put on an Indiana hoodie today because it's my alma mater, and it's the first time that I've ever had any reason to have any interest in my football program ever, which is basically the entire state of Indiana, Stuart. And I looked at the way that the college football playoff played out this year, and yeah, there's some stuff with the seeding that could afford to be tweaked, and as I think you articulated in your piece, some very fixable issues that the first iteration of the 12-team playoff had. But on the whole, I just thought it was such a success. Like, it accomplished what I thought it was supposed to accomplish, and I almost never say that about sports expansion.
Yeah, and Indiana was the poster for that. When they first decided to go to 12 teams back in 2021, it wasn't because, the way we determined the national champion isn't good enough. Honestly, one of the best team in the country was almost always one of those 4 teams. It was that so much of the country was left out. And I think people got tired and it got stale of watching Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, every year. Georgia, that small select group of teams. And so what this did was allow a program like Indiana or SMU or Arizona State, right, to have a moment in the sun, just like in the March Madness. Like, nobody is under any delusion that, you name it, Loyola is going to win the national title. But if they get in and win a couple games, it's a huge story. And that's what this allowed for. And so it's just incredible to me that after 1 year of it, before most people have even had a chance to absorb it and get used to this new world, we're going to blow it up and change it again.
Don't let him fool you, Stuart. Buck took no glee out of Indiana's run, and in fact rooted for Notre Dame in that first round matchup against
state.
Indiana. So
you cover collegiate athletics for a living. Would you not say that you run into more Notre Dame football, Indiana basketball fans in the state of Indiana than Indiana football fans?
You definitely run into more Indiana basketball fans. You would know better than me about Notre Dame, because Notre Dame like those people don't all live in Indiana, right? They
Yeah, that's
Notre
true.
Dame people graduate and move all over the country. But it was fun about that is that of those 4 first round games, by far the most expensive tickets were to the Indiana Notre Dame game, because it was like, if you're an Indiana football fan, this is like your once in a lifetime chance to see them in a game like this.
Yeah, most Indiana fans did not betray their alma maters. This one certainly did.
I did.
Besides the point, Stuart, as we've been wandering in the desert here for the last few years, and I understand the frustrations here in terms of what the SEC and Big Ten are doing, but wasn't there kind of this feeling of inevitability that the two properties with this disproportionate amount of power in the sport were going to grapple control at some point just because they can and because nobody else is?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of already have. And I thought last season, in the regular season, you really saw that in terms of, that was also the first year of the SEC's new deal with ESPN, where they can play their games on ABC. And I did not anticipate ABC would just put 3 straight SEC games on almost every week. And it was like all the ACC teams and the Big 12 teams almost like were playing on a side stage, turn into ESPN2 to see your team. So they've already basically taken over the regular season. And I get that. Like, those are the games people want to watch. They want to watch Georgia play Texas. They want to watch Ohio State play Oregon. I get it. The playoff is, like, keep using the NCAA March Madness analogy, where you get to see these teams that maybe you didn't. I don't think most people watched Arizona State play once all season, and they got into the Peach Bowl against Texas, and you got to see Cam Scatterbo deliver this all-time great performance. Now, they would tell you in this new format they're proposing, they'll still get that chance. In fact, the Big 12 is going to get 2 automatic berths if this goes through. And I get that. Again, I just think you're undermining the credibility of your tournament. Like, what other sport does that? Like, the NFL doesn't say before the season the NFC East is definitely going to get more teams than the AFC East. Like, it's just unheard of.
So as we continue this incremental growth going from 4 to 12 and potentially 12 to 14 or 16, whatever that next step will look like in 2026, what do you think is more likely, Stuart, that we just get a fixed 14 or 16 team format in 26 and that's what we do moving forward, or that we go with 14 and then maybe adjust it from there? Like, what is your hunch on what exactly this will look like in the immediate future between 14 and 16 teams?
I think the history of the college football postseason is they're always tinkering with it, right? So whether they go ahead and go to 16 now or start at 14, it'll get to 16. Like, that's just inevitable. I think they might start at 14 because it's more modest, but also there's this assumption that they just keep adding games and ESPN will just keep throwing money at them. And I don't know if that's the case. I mean, we saw this past year, two of the first round games went up against big NFL games. And so that raised a whole question of, well, is there a better time to play these games, and questions about the schedule. So now you're saying in a 14-team playoff, we're going to have 6 first-round games. Where are you going to play those other games? So I don't know that ESPN, is dying to expand the playoff already. Now, if the conferences decide that's what they want to do, obviously ESPN will accommodate them. But I don't think this is a case of, all parties are necessarily on board with this.
Well, it's just Stuart Mandel of The Athletic here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can read him online at theathletic.com. Well worth your subscription, not just for Stuart, but for all the great journalism being done there. We talk a lot about the NFL. Nashville is primarily a pro market, but obviously SEC country, so we spend a great deal of time talking SEC football as well. And the salary cap in the NFL just went up. I mean, over the course of the last 2 years, $53 million in total. It spiked again. The NFL, continuing to pursue streamers, international live broadcast rights, and the different kinds of money that they can consume as they continue to try and expand. It's just so interesting to look at college football in a similar light. Because my question for you is, as somebody who's a lifer essentially in this industry, covering this sport, like, what is their end game here?
In terms of how much money they can make?
What is their growth? Yeah, I guess that's at the crux of the question. Like,
I think what's driving this particular round is the revenue sharing, that if the House settlement gets approved in April, now these schools need to come up with $20.5 million to pay their athletes directly that they didn't have to before. And so they're kind of turning over couch cushions and looking for any penny they can. As I said in that column, I think Tony Petitti and the Big Ten's goal of this is once they have established that there's going to be 4 Big Ten teams in, then they can create their like own little NBA play-in tournament for those 4 spots or for 2 of those 4 spots and sell that to Fox or CBS and make money. And you look at the Big Ten, you go, you guys are already making $1 billion a year in TV money. How much more do you need? But to your point, right? And they would say, well, you know, because of a court settlement, we have to pay an extra $20 million. We got to find that somewhere.
He's Stuart Mandel. He'll continue to do excellent coverage for The Athletic about the world of college football. Read him online at theathletic.com. You can follow him on Twitter at SL Mandel. Stuart, thanks so much for hopping on the radio show for the first time. We hope it won't be the last. It was great information.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's Stuart Mandel with us on 104.5 The Zone. It's a really interesting column. The story in general, Ross Dellinger, I think, is at the forefront of a lot of the news breaking in the world of the college football playoff expansion, and he is who had the initial report on Sunday afternoon, I guess Sunday evening, about the SEC and Big Ten continuing to basically put their foot down on, no, it's our thing, and we're going to direct this thing the way that we feel like it should go. And at the end of the day, are they right? Yes.
Yeah, that's my thing. We've been desperately asking for somebody to take control in some sort of way. And I get the arguments against, especially after a year where the SEC only got 3 teams in. But then you had the likes of Indiana and SMU getting blown out in the first round. And that's not to say the SEC would have done any better. SEC undefeated in hypothetical matchups. We know this. But another thing I like about it is conference championships feel like they'll matter more again.
Oh, so you like this?
I like this more than I dislike it. Like, I understand the frustrations.
You bring that up with Stewart.
No, but my whole point with Stewart, too, was there was a feeling of inevitability with this.
Oh, sure.
Like, we've just been waiting for this to happen, so I'm not outraged by it. And I get his argument of if the NFL said, well, the NFC East pulled in this much cash last year, so they will get, their top 2, not just the division winners guaranteed, top 2 in the NFC East.
Imagine.
But college football is not the NFL, right? And it's a mistake to try to make college football as much like the NFL as possible because people don't watch the NFL because of the format. They watch it because it's the best football players on the planet playing in the same league. People that love college football or people that don't love college football aren't going to love it more because the format copies the NFL. So I don't think following that line of thinking gets you anywhere, but I understand his frustration. A lot of people look at that and say, of course, SEC could have a down year and still get 4 teams in just automatically because they make all the money. But it's just kind of a statement of where college football is right now and how directionless it is to where the 2 most powerful pieces of the puzzle said, okay, then we're going to do this.
Yeah, you got a void. And Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti filled in that void. They're saying, no, we have the most powerful properties here. We have the strongest entities. Yes, we acknowledge that maybe the SEC and the Big Ten won't have the best season every year for the rest of time, but under Greg Sankey, it's rare to see the SEC take a step back in terms of the level of competitiveness of the teams at the top of the field that they're perpetually putting out there. It is the best football in the country from top to bottom, and I know the Big Ten has a more compelling argument lately, but still, it's still, I'm not going to say it pales in comparison with the national champion coming out of the Big Ten this year, but how many years did it take us to get a Big Ten national champion between the last time the Ohio State won in the first iteration of the college football playoff?
As fun as the debate was on what's the committee going to do now, right? It was also extremely frustrating to watch them move the goalposts around. So I don't mind there being an official, all right, if you do this, you're in. If you don't do this, you're out. And we don't have to sit there and argue about strength of schedule and all these things. If you finish in the top 4 in the SEC and the Big Ten, you're in. Same with the top 2 in the Big 12. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Top 2 in the ACC. And then we figure out the at-large, whether it's 14 or 16, 1 or 3 at-larges. So there will be some debate, but not so much to the point of parsing through Miami or Alabama based on just a total uneven playing field because their schedules are completely different and it's just an imperfect science.
All right. The salary cap is expected to go up at least $22 million, according to Dan Graziano of ESPN. We can talk about that coming up next, what it means for the Titans and potential other team dominoes that Titans fans might be paying attention to. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Money. It's the answer to all of your questions all the time. It is the answer to your salary cap questions as well, because the Titans just went from ballpark somewhere between $50 and $44 million, depending on where you look, to at least $22 million in additional salary cap space. This is reporting from Dan Graziano of ESPN. The NFL Today informed teams that the 2025 per-team salary cap will fall in the range of $277.5 to $281.5 million, way up from last year's $255.4, which is a huge jump from the year prior, where it was about $221.
It's a lot of dollars.
So your $20 million guard, Lucas, just got more expensive.
Yeah, and did you see the report about Trey Smith from Pro Football Talk today?
They're not going to tag him?
That they are not expected, I say Pro Football Talk, it was reported from The Athletic, Pro Football Talk aggregating, that the Chiefs are not expected to franchise or transition tag Trey Smith.
Yeah, it's because based on the money right now, he would cost $25 million. That would be foolish for them to pay a guard on a team like Kansas City $25 million when they now have about at least $27 million in cap space. Prior to the cap spike, they had $5 million. Still, that would not be the best use of their finances, especially a hard cap hit of 25 and change for Trey Smith. Now, on a long-term deal, you could massage the cap hit in any given year. You could have a lower cap hit in the first year and a higher cap hit in the second year, which is the case for the vast majority of the Titans contracts heading into their second year. So that's Snead, that's Ridley, that's Cushenberry. Who else has a cap spike? Awuzie. We could go through all of them at length. I'm not sure what Murray's is off the top of my head.
Field Yates listing teams with tons of room include the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Commanders. Teams with cap work to do include the Saints, the Browns, and the Bills.
Well, what this tells me is that, one, the Saints are still in cap hell because they were still $50 million in the red, but it makes the path to keeping Derek Carr in New Orleans infinitely more viable.
If that's the route they want to go.
Again, what is the other option for New Orleans? They could trade up from where they're currently slated to draft. I don't have the draft pick. What's their draft pick?
9.
9? So, it would cost a significant amount to go from 9 to probably into the top 2 to get one of these quarterbacks. If that's something that you're interested in. New Orleans does not have many of these teams that have a quarterback situation that other teams might be interested in, they don't have a viable quarterback path forward. Like, the thing that makes Atlanta viable is the fact that they have both Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix under contract already. Even if Cousins is the more expensive player, they're fine to sit him on the bench and call him up as need be because Penix is the player that they're prepared to move forward with.
You could certainly do worse as a backup quarterback, but
like New Orleans,
you don't really see that, right? Like, in the same way that you don't see NFL teams.
This just made it infinitely more viable.
I understand, but you don't see teams give a guy a shot, whether he's a second-round pick, first-round pick, third-round pick, like a Sam Howell, like we saw with Desmond Ridder, and it not work, and then say, well, we'll hang on to you, develop you, maybe you can be our backup, like we talk about with Levis, and the Titans potentially keeping Levis. You don't really see that happen. The Jets and Zach Wilson's one of the only exceptions I can think of, and they got rid of him as quickly as they could. And you don't see teams give big money to quarterbacks. Something go wrong, they put in the rookie, and it's his team now, and you hang on to that big money quarterback.
Sure. But I'm saying that if the cap is going to continue to go up $20+ million a year, that, yeah, sure, why not? Wouldn't you rather be deeper at quarterback than move on from the guy? Like, what's the alternative that you're proposing? Because I get what you're saying. It doesn't happen very often. But neither does $53 million over the last 2 years is what the cap has gone up. That's outrageous. That's why the NFL continues to be interested in the international game, the international rights, the selling of the international rights, because they want to keep this trend going forward. The only time that I've seen the cap take a haircut is COVID.
Well,
and it's since rebounded spectacularly.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, but the reason why is you could take a dead cap hit of $35 million on Kirk Cousins now, instead of having a backup quarterback that brings a cap hit of over $57 million each of the next 2 years. That's why.
Sure.
But, yeah, that's a lot of money.
But again, there's always, we are not capologists or whatever the technical term for those people are. How often do we see teams like New Orleans for a long time with Drew Brees' contract, Tom Brady with the Bucs, void years in their contract to, again, soothe that cap hit of, what is it, $57 million and change for Kirk Cousins?
$57.5 million in 2026 and 2027.
The money is maneuverable.
Yeah. Their out is after the 2025 season. So they could hang on to him for a year and then get that out. And they could let go of him, but it would be a much heftier cap hit. Cap.
Who are the teams that Field Yates listed that had work to do?
That had work to do: Browns, Bills, and Saints.
Well, the Browns are banged no matter what they do because of Deshaun. Myles Garrett, I suppose, would provide some cap relief, but, again, that's a risky proposition. Browns, Bears, you said?
Bills.
Josh Allen on the offensive side of the football, interesting. Cincinnati is another interesting figure.
Joe Burrow is one of the first people I thought of because he's out there talking about TV money's going up. He was basically projecting with Stephen A. and all the media stops that he made. Like, we're going to have money. We're going to have money to keep the band together.
So your cap concerns are more often than not negated by the NFL's almost annual ability to raise the ceiling on their cap. That is something that for the Titans is going to be advantageous. It means at the end of the day that the price is going to go up. So my expectation or your expectation that Sam Darnold was not going to make $55 million a year, this just changed. I think Sam Darnold's going to make what the next quarterback makes. Dak is making 60. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing to me about the position, the current state of the market that tells me that if Sam Darnold makes less than, on an average annual basis, than $50 million a year, I will be stunned.
You'd be stunned if the Vikings tagged him?
I would, because that would tell us they know something or they think they know something about J.J. McCarthy that the rest of the world doesn't know.
Well, what do you mean?
Like, if they tag Sam Darnold, that would indicate that J.J. McCarthy isn't ready.
Which would stand to reason for me. Guy missed his entire rookie year.
Yeah, but he didn't miss all of it. He's just not physically able to play
Played in a
field.
couple preseason games.
Yeah, but that's a first-round pick at quarterback that you would be shelving for a second year. You want to talk about things that teams don't do? That. 2 years? That's unthinkable.
I feel like more teams should.
Sure, but Lucas, again, you've just showed me examples of how often teams do something or don't do something, and you're presenting me with the idea that a first-round pick at quarterback would sit for 2 years?
Yeah, who is an example? Like, who is the longest sitting first-round pick at quarterback?
Recently, Jordan Love.
Yeah.
But again,
and
that
was
Rodgers. Such an anomaly. That was such an anomaly. And that's specific to one organization out of 32.
I don't know if McCarthy is ready or not, but if a guy's not ready, he's not ready.
The tag at $40 million would, of course, be the more viable situation for Minnesota than, a team like the Titans paying $55 million a year for Sam Darnold. But again, I would be shocked let me say this, if he hits the open market in the scenario that Minnesota does not tag him, if that man makes less than $50 million a year, I will be stunned.
And that's the thing. You can tag Sam Darnold and still end up starting J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, but then you're talking about the exact same thing you just argued against in Atlanta.
But
we just saw Atlanta do it.
It's a 1-year contract.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a straight up cap hit. You're just prepared to take $40 million on the chin?
If it gives me more insurance at the most important position in sports?
You just made the argument against that in Atlanta. You just did that.
No, because that's a 4-year contract worth $180 million. Yeah. This is a 1-year franchise tag.
It's a $17 million difference, but it's not difference. It's insurance at the most important position. I understand that it's a longer contract, but it's still the quarterback position. It's still the most important position on the field.
I think tagging Sam Darnold and keeping Kirk Cousins are just two totally different situations.
I'm talking about in principle, the insurance policy at quarterback. That is a substantial amount of money for a team just to eat for the insurance policy at quarterback, no matter how long the contract is. And I acknowledge that there's a difference in those two situations.
And they could view this as J.J. McCarthy's rookie season.
That would not make a lot of sense to me. But
the guy missed his entire rookie year.
He did not play at all.
Miss his entire rookie year.
Yes,
he was injured for his entire rookie year. I understand what you're saying.
Did he play football last year?
Yes, he played in preseason games. He played in practice. He has participated in football as a professional football player. He has participated in meetings. He has been the beneficiary of understanding the system, all the different things. And I understand that you don't get better at football without playing football. I get that. but it's not like he's just a complete and total, like none of last year happened for J.J. McCarthy at all. No, that's not
But
true.
like, how much was he in? I don't know how much
It's
he was
53
involved.
and we have to go to polls.
We've also never seen a quarterback drafted in the first round and miss their entire rookie year.
You're going to
due
talk over
injury.
the polls? No,
Sorry.
we don't stop the polls. Play the polls.
No, yeah, keep going. So either way, it's an unprecedented situation. J.J. McCarthy, by nature, is an unprecedented situation. That's what you sound like when you have to have the last word. Polls are presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford
When
dealer.
do I ever have to have the last word? I will look up at 41 and you are still yammering about on a point that you had written down that you just absolutely had to get. I have to have the last word, please.
And yet the segment still ends with "I'm Buck Rising."
Some
This is 104.5 The Zone.
self-awareness would be critical to this particular situation on both of your parts.
Listen to this man talk about self-awareness wearing a rat under his nose. Do you enjoy the NFL international games? 80% say no. And I agree.
Do you enjoy them?
Yeah. Do you enjoy the NFL international?
I don't know. I'm honest to God, I forget that they're on half the time. I'm getting ready for pregame. I don't pay attention to them.
Would you pay more for Netflix if they had more NFL games? 81.5% say no.
That's a lie.
Yeah, I think it's a lie,
It's
too.
a lie.
What do you think
We're calling out lies.
about the SEC
Lie.
and Big Ten each having 4 automatic qualifiers in the next college football playoff format? Like it, love it, or hate it, 63.7% say they hate it, 24.7% say they like it, 11.6% say they love it.
Yeah, I'm either way.
I also just want it to be over, man. I just want to know what this thing's going to look like. Tired of doing this every year. Tired of just having no consistency.
I'm not, just because it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, and the discussions were really fun around it, but I do have some fatigue to what's the future of the college football playoff? How much longer do we have to do
Get
that?
the last word. The show's over.
Who is the free agent that you want the Titans to land the most? CT says Justin Fields. Karen, most people say Trey Smith. Jack says Josh Sweat.
Yeah, Sweat over Smith for sure.
No love for NWI on here.
Well, that's a retention. I get why people aren't thinking
still
that
a
way.
free agent.
No, I'm with you. Those polls?
Those are the polls.
Prime time tonight. Blaine and Zach next.